Hey everybody, welcome back to Dorm Squad Sports, Alabama sports podcast focused on Alabama athletics. Everybody, we only have one elephant in the room this week. Of course, I'm Dakota here with Brian and Oakley, and it's my elephant in the room, and that's last week's fantasy draft results because we put it up on Twitter, and I won in an overwhelming victory. I just want to put that out. I mean, I don't even care what the other elephants in the room are. That's all that really matters. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about what really matters, and that's, of course, college football playoff top 25 that came out this week. If there's anything that spoke out to y'all to start it out.
It's kind of interesting that UCF was 12. Most people think that they are worse this year than they were last year. Yeah, they're rated higher this year than last year, and you got to think how much does last year's what they did and what they accomplished factor into the committee's minds.
Do you say it's kind of interesting because you think it should be higher or lower?
Lower.
Yeah, I do too. I think they should significantly be lower than that.
Yeah.
I don't know I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but like in all of college football, their strength of schedule is like 125th. Like, it's been terrible.
That was garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying UCF's not a top 25 team. I think there's probably 25 teams in college football that could beat them, but I
agree.
They're on that ranking based off what they did last year. I mean, let's just be honest.
And honestly, they're even higher in the AP poll, so at least the college football committee is, saying, let's be honest, they're not going to make it because if you start out that low, chances are you're not going to make it, especially when they don't have a really big game to prove themselves. Another thing that I saw that really stuck out to me was that Washington State was all the way up to 8. Usually they're in like the teens or around 10 or so in the AP poll. So the fact that they're giving them respect, one thing it means though is still they don't control their own destiny. If they win out, they still have to hope other teams lose. That being said, the Pac-12 is still alive. If they win out, they still have a chance in my mind.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting to me, which you have LSU ahead of Notre Dame, is that the college football playoff had the same. LSU's, I think their really only big win is Georgia, am I right? I mean, Miami's not a big win anymore. Auburn's not a big win anymore. And
They got beat by Florida, right?
Yes.
yeah,
And
Notre Dame beat Michigan. Michigan's actually number 5. They're number 5 in the real rankings, are they not?
I think so.
Yeah, they are. They're number 5. So I don't know. That was kind of confusing to me.
Which another thing that is I find interesting is Notre Dame is number 4 and Michigan's number 5. So they really think those two teams are comparable. And Notre Dame got the advantage because of that loss. So let's say that both Notre Dame and Michigan win out, and Michigan has a conference championship, and their one loss is to Notre Dame. I wonder how they would compare those two teams in terms of rankings.
I think Notre Dame would get in because of the head-to-head win.
Well, I think they would both get in because LSU would have to fall out
true,
or Alabama would have to fall out. But if they both win out, I could see Michigan taking the 3 seed and Notre Dame slipping to the 4, even if they are undefeated, which seems kind of surprising, but you never know.
Yeah, I think if for Notre Dame to jump them, I think they'll have to beat Ohio State pretty impressively. I think because whoever they play from the other side, I don't know who's winning I think it's the west side of that division, but I know they destroyed Wisconsin by like 3 touchdowns, and Wisconsin's got to be one of the better teams on that side, and. So, it's not going to be a good win, really, whoever they beat on the other side for the conference championship game.
But compare it with Notre Dame. They don't have another good win on their schedule.
Yeah.
Their toughest opponent's going to be Syracuse.
Yeah, but just comparing the two teams, I'm just saying that Notre Dame did beat them head-to-head, which that was the first game of the season, and a lot's changed since then. But just going off what the committee really goes by, I think, you got head-to-head, and then if Michigan wins out, their biggest win would be Ohio State.
Yeah, be a good win.
Other than that, who's Michigan beating other than that?
Yeah, but, I mean, if they get that – I mean, I don't know how they prioritize tiebreakers, but they have a few criteria of tiebreakers.
Yeah.
One of them is head-to-head, but another one is conference championship. And since Notre Dame really hasn't been in a situation where they've had to put out the fact that, conference championships do or don't matter in terms of Notre Dame, it's just interesting because that's one of the few things that we haven't learned yet from this committee.
Yeah, but Ohio State won the conference championship last year, and they ended up not getting in.
Yeah, good
So
point.
I think it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be like one thing. Like it's not just gonna be conference championship or head to head. Like it's gonna be like they are gonna take that head to head into consideration. But I think you're also gonna look and be like, how is Notre Dame playing? How is Michigan playing? Which is most likely won't even be a scenario at the end. But it's all fun to talk about.
Yeah, going back to LSU being at number 3, honestly, that doesn't really matter right now. I think a couple reasons they did that is, number one, people watch the show if LSU jumps Notre Dame to get the 3rd spot. And number 2, Alabama's about to play Notre Dame anyway. I mean, LSU anyway. And if LSU wins, they're going to jump Notre Dame anyway and probably go to number 2 behind Clemson. They could go to number 1, but I think they would go to number 2. And if Bama wins, LSU's going to drop out anyway. So it's not really going to have any repercussions regardless of the effect or outcome.
Now, there's one reason it matters, and the fact that we're like 4 or 5 years in, we still have these really dumb stats that mean absolutely nothing, but they're fun to look at. And one of them is in the opening rankings, the number 3 team has never made it to the playoff. And I believe either every year or almost every year, they've lost in the first 2 weeks after that first ranking comes out. So, I mean, if history repeats itself, good sign that Alabama handles LSU in the week.
Yeah, the 4-year history of
Yeah,
college
exactly.
football playoff.
I mean,
My bad. This will be the 5th year, so yeah, it is 4 years.
but I mean, like I said, you can just pull out dumb stats when you only have 4 years of data, but they're still fun to talk about on the podcast.
Right here on the committee's top 6, because your top 6 matches up directly with the committee's.
Right.
Can you look at the team above and then look at the team below that and say, this team would beat this team head to head, and then do the same on down? They're all the way throughout the list.
I think I can until 5 and 6,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly 4, 5, and 6. I know Notre Dame already beat Michigan, but Michigan looks so much better. And even when you look back, we think of that as a blowout, but it was a relatively close game. It's just neither team looked specifically good.
Yeah.
And Georgia, I honestly, I still don't know what to think about Georgia. I do think Bama would beat Clemson. Clemson would beat LSU. I think LSU would beat Notre Dame. If
I do
Notre
too.
Dame had a rematch with Michigan, I think Michigan would get it though.
That could possible. Right there, I think 3 through 6 really close. Right there.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Alabama and Clemson are the best 2 teams in college football right now.
Definitely. There's a gap between 1 and 2, but there is a gap
Yeah.
between 2 and 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, like Davis Sweeney came on the college football playoff ranking show and said that it's Bama and then it's the rest of y'all. And I think that's a little bit of an understatement to his team because his team's really good. But I think you're right. Like especially after that 2nd spot, it's a huge gap.
And I mean, I know there's still a lot of teams that have a whatever chance to make it, but just being realistic right here, Washington State probably not going to make it.
Probably not.
Kentucky probably not going to make it.
Either Ohio State or Michigan's not going to make
Right
it.
now, I would say the top 6 teams currently, and then Oklahoma and Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that's
Maybe
pretty safe.
West Virginia.
But
I wouldn't. I'm not very confident in that. So I would say those 8 right there: Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Notre Dame, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, and then Oklahoma. I think those are your 8 teams right there that got the best shot at making the playoff.
I mean, Kentucky, they're probably going to lose this week coming up against Georgia. Of course, we're going to pick that a little bit later on. That's going to be a tough one for them. I don't think they're going to win it.
I mean, Kentucky has a chance, but does anybody think they're going to beat Georgia? Okay, and if you do think they're going to beat Georgia, do you think they're going to beat Alabama? I mean,
good point. And I mean, Washington State, they're going to end up losing somewhere. They still have to play Washington.
But yeah,
they're going to lose.
Why
somewhere.
is Washington State going to get it in over one-loss Oklahoma team? I mean,
point.
who's Washington State played?
They would need absolute chaos to win in my eyes.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Well, I mean, that's considering Notre Dame loses. If Notre Dame doesn't lose 2 Power 5 conference champions, they're most likely not getting in, which is more than we've had in the past because they're an independent school.
Yeah, there's always the past few years. There's been something to mess it up. A couple years ago, the whole Ohio State, Penn State issue that messed it up. Of course, last year Alabama getting in messed it up. I think Notre Dame has a real chance to mess it up, assuming they win out. and it's just going to leave one less conference happy. But another stat that we saw, and I saw this on Twitter, I forget who put it out, but the SEC had the highest ranked undefeated team, the highest ranked 1-loss team, the highest ranked 2-loss team, and the 2 highest ranked 3-loss teams. And of course, there's no 4-loss team in the top 25. So at the end of the day, they're really going to respect the SEC. And if I don't think it's going to happen where we get 2 SEC teams in again. I think it would take some chaos starting this week. But they're definitely, even if it determines, where you get ranked in the top 4, they're going to put respect on the SEC's name before they put it on anybody else.
How many teams do you think finish undefeated when the season's done after conference championship week?
I think 2.
I think 2 as well.
You don't think 3?
I don't think 3.
Who do you think loses?
Well, hold up. 3 would include UCF.
No.
Okay, so we're just not going to count UCF.
No, UCF, they don't count.
Okay. Well, in that case, yeah. 2.
I would say 3.
You think all 3 of them will win?
Yeah, I think Bama wins out, Clemson wins out. I think Notre Dame wins out.
I
Even
think they're
though-
gonna find a game.
okay,
When, I mean, obviously, history, you really can't look at that. But, when's the last time 3 teams have finished undefeated in a season? When's the last time 2 teams have finished undefeated in a season?
It's been a long time.
I feel like it's been a while, honestly.
I mean,
been a
most of
long time.
the teams that got in the playoff recently have had 1 loss. Am I right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Which, that directly goes against what I say earlier. I mean, later in the show, because I'm pretty sure I have Northwestern beating Notre Dame. But anyway,
Well, I do too, yeah.
I just think that Notre Dame has a good chance of winning out.
They do.
That's
I
just
think
me.
Notre Dame's got a good chance of winning out too, but I mean, Clemson, I think Clemson's a lot better than Notre Dame. I say a lot better. I think Clemson's better than Notre Dame, and I don't think they're gonna lose. I don't know. I just don't think they're gonna lose.
I don't think Clemson has a loss available on the schedule. I think Alabama has losses on the schedule, but they're going to win them because they're going to be the better team. And with Notre Dame, even if it's not this week, in a few weeks they're going to play Syracuse. Syracuse gave Clemson a hard time. I believe that's that neutral site game. Isn't it in Yankee Stadium or something? And they are going to be wearing the most ugly jerseys of all time. And if you wear jerseys that ugly, you don't deserve to win. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Clemson's the rest of their schedule is Louisville, who's trash bags. Boston College, they're ranked 24th, and so that tells you all you need to know. Duke and South Carolina, all of which are unranked. So it's basically a cakewalk to the ACC championship.
I would actually watch. Where's Boston College at? Where's that game
It's at Boston College.
I would watch out for that game. Boston College, they got a really good offense. They got a good running back. I'd watch out for that game. Anything's possible.
Yeah, they might be trying to look forward to the ACC championship game by then. Because, I mean, even if they lose that game, they're still in the ACC championship game.
I mean, even if they lose that game and win the ACC championship, I feel like they would get in.
They would. Zeroed out.
Oh, yeah, I think they would too.
I mean,
Over in Oklahoma. You think they'd get in over in – all right, well, let's think about this. Alabama goes undefeated. ACC, the Clemson 1 loss. Oklahoma champion 1 loss.
Notre Dame undefeated.
Did we just say that Notre Dame was
You didn't say anything
I
about
didn't say
Notre
anything.
Dame.
Notre Dame undefeated, and then say a Michigan 1 loss.
I think they'd still get in over
Right there, you'd have
Oklahoma.
Right there, you'd have Alabama 1, Notre Dame 2, Michigan 3, and then 4.
It'd be
You'd
tied
have-
between Oklahoma and Clemson. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
that's
Clemson's a better
tough.
team, but I think it'd be pretty close.
I
Yeah.
think that they're just going to respect Clemson. And let's be honest, like we've said before, they try to make it where you're trying to put the best 4 teams out there, and they do that pretty well. But they also want revenue and sales. And what's going to sell more, Alabama, Oklahoma, or the rematch between Alabama and Clemson?
Bro, I'm about
I
tired
don't
of
know.
seeing
At this
Alabama,
point, Alabama,
Clemson.
Oklahoma.
You really think so?
Bro, I like
Yeah,
I
nobody
like
wants-
Dabo Swinney. I like seeing him do well, but I'm tired of seeing Bama Clemson. It just feels like
Yeah.
we might as well put him as part of our schedule.
Yeah,
Play
I
one year.
definitely think people would rather see Kyler Murray go up against Tua than see Alabama play Clemson for the 4th year in a row.
Yeah, maybe so. But
This
who
has
knows?
nothing to do with the college football playoff. I just want to say that in this week's AP poll that UAB received more votes than Auburn.
That
I
makes
just-
me so happy.
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
UAB's got a good football team, by the way.
They're probably the second best team in the state.
They got a really good football coach too. I would definitely say UAB has the second best football coach in the state.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And he
Like-
probably gets paid nothing compared to what he's worth.
Oh no.
But
If Auburn does want to fire Gus, he'd be a good hire.
he probably would. because I mean they don't get the high quality head coaches anyway. When Gus Malzahn came, he was a high school coach and offense coordinator, then head coach at Arkansas State. They don't get the top level NFL coach coming down. They don't get people like that. They
No.
get someone who recruits and knows how to recruit for a small school because, in all honesty, they're not going to get the best Alabama State prospects. They have to recruit like a small school, and then they just have to build that talent and hope for the best. So what y'all think about y'all's top six? Because we put our top six in our little document before this all started, and I swear we did it before, but my top six were identical to the rankings. So what y'all think? Where do y'all think they got it wrong?
So just, I had Notre Dame 3 just based on the fact that they're undefeated. I mean, everybody I guess has their own criteria or whatever, but
I mean, that's the way the AP poll had it.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a bad take.
I
or
mean,
anything.
like Notre Dame, their level of their best win is right up there with Georgia or LSU's best win, because like Georgia and Michigan are sitting there at in the 5-6 range right there. So so I had Notre Dame 3, LSU 4, and then I had Georgia 5, Michigan 6, because I think Georgia's played a little bit of a tougher schedule
I agree.
than Michigan.
Michigan's going to be tested this week, definitely.
Not only that, I just think from the eye test standpoint that Georgia's a better team than Michigan.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, so that's what I had.
Yeah, I had the same thing as Brian, except for I had Michigan and Georgia swapped, and that's just based off like I think Georgia's defense could play a little better. I think that like Michigan's defense is playing like a little better than Georgia's defense as of right now. Obviously, we'll know a lot more after next week, but or this weekend. But I think it's pretty close between those two.
I think what's also interesting is Michigan is ranked higher than Georgia. So Notre Dame's best win is against a bigger or a quote-unquote better opponent based off their criteria than LSU's. But I think what really put LSU over Notre Dame, despite that one loss, is the way that they beat Georgia. They handled that game almost the entire game. Their offense wasn't perfect, but that was their game. And the Michigan-Notre Dame game, it was kind of a who is going to lose this game as opposed to who takes it and wins it. And LSU, when they played Georgia, they just took the bull by the horns and won it the entire way through. So I think that really means a lot to the committee, is not just who you play and who you beat and who you lose to, but how you do it. And they definitely passed the eye test that week. So another thing we got up, we're bringing back the Heisman poll because after this week, it might be set in stone depending on how Tua does. So we want to figure out where we are going into this. And Oakley, you can take your Heisman poll first.
Yeah, I mean, number one, I had Tua. He's a clear front runner. Like, there's not anybody that close. Closest one's Kyler Murray, but which is who I have at number 2. But after Murray, there's a huge drop off. I have Gardner Minshew just because he's playing pretty well right now. Pretty good completion of passes, and just overall he's playing at a pretty high level. He's got his team up at the 8th spot, and I really didn't know who to put at number 4, so I just put Haskins. He's played pretty well throughout the season. They got demolished by Purdue. I mean, honestly, I didn't know who else to put there, so Haskins seemed like a pretty safe bet.
So I had pretty much the same thing. I didn't put Gardner Minshew on there just because, I mean, he's getting the stats, but if you're on the West Coast, your odds of making it to New York are just slim, and your odds of winning it are just slim to none. If they do win out and they somehow try to make it in the playoff, or if they're at least a contender, then he might at least make it to New York. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I had Tua, then Kyler, and I put Travis Etienne, the running back from Clemson. I think he's the best chance of a non-quarterback to make it to New York. I don't really like the odds of him to win it. Like, I wouldn't put a single penny on him in betting, and he had a bad week this week, but he's been having a few high weeks. He had a rough week this last week. And you're going to take the best players from the best teams, and he's probably the best player on that Clemson offense, so he might get an invite. And I ended up putting Dwayne Haskins at 4. Honestly, it's really a two-person race, and they always say that wherever the significant drop-off is is where they cut who makes it to New York and who doesn't. I don't think they're going to do that this year because it's just a bad look if you have two quarterbacks up there and you know which one's getting it. You're going to want to put someone else in there. So it might end up being a Gardner Minshew or maybe even a Trace McSorley or Dwayne Haskins. You're going to put someone else in that Heisman poll, in my opinion, just so they have more than two people waiting for the trophy in New York, at the very least for betting purposes.
Yeah, right now, it's not even close. Being honest, Tua is definitely number one, but the Heisman voters, they say they remember November, and it's going to come down to what these quarterbacks do. These final few games, it's going to be like, what did Kyler Murray do? Here in his late part of the season, what did Tua do against LSU in Baton Rouge, against Mississippi State? What did Dwayne Haskins do against Michigan? But I'm going to say this. I think Minshew's closer to Murray than what people are giving him credit for. Minshew leads all of college football in passing yards right now. He's the only quarterback in college football with over 3,000 passing yards. And he's also completed over 70% of his passes. He's thrown 26 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. I had Minshew at 3, right behind Murray, and then I had Haskins at 4. Somebody else to keep an eye on at number 5, Houston's quarterback. He's a group of 5 guys, so those guys aren't going to get as much attention. But Derek King, he's thrown for 2,400 yards. He has 28 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 173.3, which ranks 6th in the nation. And he's also had a couple games this season where he's ran the ball for over 100 yards. So I think that's someone else to watch. Then outside of that, Travis Etienne, he's getting some love, and he could find his way to New York. But, looking at the stats, I feel like the only reason he's up there is because he's on an undefeated team. And he's kind of like the best player on that offense, or like the biggest playmaker on that offense, whatever you want to say. But yeah,
I think if you wanted to, you can make a case for Trevor Lawrence. I know he started out a little slow, but these past few weeks he's really been hitting his shots, and he's been looking better.
I think he's one of the best offensive players in the country, but because he didn't start the whole year, I really think that's going to hurt him because he's not going to have as much time to get the stats that he needs. And it's not the same as Tua, where he doesn't play every fourth quarter, but he's winning games by so much that you don't need him to. When for the first 4 games of the year, the coach said, okay, there's this guy on the roster that we like at this position more than we like you. That's really hard to come back from in your freshman year as a Heisman. Now, ESPN, their expert poll, every person voted Tua first place. Every person voted Kyler Murray second place. And after that, that gave Tua 50 points, Kyler 40 points, Dwayne Haskins 18, Gardner Minshew 7, and then Etienne had 6. So you could easily see it being a 4-person trip to New York if we keep everything the way we have it right now. And sometimes they do give someone that trip to New York, even if they don't quote-unquote deserve it, just because, just give it to them. Why not? Just give them the experience. And I could see them doing that for someone like Minshew. So he might make it to New York. And they might even add Etienne in there. But we still have a lot of time. We have the whole month of November to figure this out. But unless Alabama just crashes somehow, I don't see Tua losing this award.
Yeah. Just looking at the stats, it's insane how big of a gap. When you look at look at Tua's stats, even Murray's stats. There's 2 quarterbacks with a quarterback rating over 200, and it's Tua's at 238.8 and Murray's at 227.3. But the most impressive thing, on the stat board between these 2 guys, is that their yards per attempt, which is how far are you averaging throwing the ball down the field. And Tua's averaging 14 yards throwing the ball, and Murray's averaging 13 yards, and both those guys are both completing over 70% of their passes. When you look at guys I don't take anything away from these guys, but Trevor Lawrence, he's only averaging 8 yards a throw, and Tua's averaging throwing the ball 6 more yards on the field and has 5% higher completion percentage than he does. So that's not a knock on Trevor Lawrence at all. He's still really good, but that's just saying how impressive Tua's been this season.
Yeah, he's definitely been balling out. Both Tua and Kyler Murray have. And Kyler Murray, it's impressive also because this is it for him in football. In his contract, he has 1 year of college football. He's going to go play for the A's. He's going to go play baseball. This is it for him. I'm impressed that he decided to come back. A lot of people question that move because he had $6 million in the bank, and he could have made more if he went to go play baseball right now. But you can see what that team means to him. You can see what the sport means to him, and that was his decision. It seems to be paying off for him.
Yeah, but Oklahoma's going to be fine. They have a quarterback coming in named Spencer Rattler, and he's some people think he's the best quarterback coming out of this class. So even with Kyler Murray gone, there's next man up for them.
As long as they have Lincoln Riley, they're going to have plenty of offense to compete in every game they're in, if we're going to be absolutely honest. Now, if he goes off to the NFL, we might see it slap a little bit, but until that day, we're definitely going to be fine. Oklahoma's definitely going to be fine. They're probably, unless Texas comes back, they're probably going to win the Big 12 every year.
As long as Oklahoma's in the Big 12, they're going to be okay offensively.
Yeah. I mean, we said, I think on our first episode, the best offense in the Big 12 wins the Big 12. And like I said, Lincoln Riley there, you definitely have the best offense every year. Another thing we have, it's a little bit special. It's the first time we've done it. It's called In and Out. We each pick 3 players. We're going to go 1 player per person at a time. And it's either a player that's going to be coming into the program from recruiting or a player that's heading out in the draft. We're going to talk about them, talk about where they stack up either coming in or where they're stacking up in the draft. Y'all, I believe you both did all players coming in. I did 1 player coming in and 2 players going out. It's really easier to do players coming in just because it's more set in stone and we know what our program is. And if they've committed and it's a hard commit, we know what situation they're going into. But when it comes to players leaving, it's a little bit tougher. But, Bryant, you can take the first one.
Yeah, my first player coming in is I want to talk about Hewitt Trussell tackle Pierce Quick. There's been a lot of buzz. All the buzz was around Talia Tagovailoa and Paul Tyson, rightfully so. But Pierce Quick was the highest-rated player on the field in that game. He's a 5-star. He's the second-best player in the state of Alabama. Alabama feels really strong about his commitment, not really worried about losing him. Alabama right now, they have 3 departing offensive linemen, starting offensive linemen, if you count Cotton in that group, which he's just recently been benched for Brown. But so he could have a shot to crack starting lineup next year. Not predicting it's going to happen, but there's always a chance there.
Yeah, so I had Will Reichard. He's coming in. He's at one point he was rated the number 1 kicker and punter in the nation, which I think is crazy. But I believe his kicking coach, a pretty high guy in the kicking world, he said that Reichard would be the number 1 kicker in the 2017 class, the 2018 class, the 19 class, the 20 class. And I think that says something high about Reichard, which is good news for Bama fans because we need a kicker pretty bad. Bulovos was pretty highly rated as well, so hopefully this won't be another bust. I don't think he will be, but it also gives us a little bit of hope because if DeLong does, because I think Mike Bernier is a senior, and if DeLong doesn't improve like we want him to, then Reichard has a chance to step up and be that guy for us punting the ball.
Yeah, and we could definitely use a quality kicker. I saw a couple people dressed up as Charlie Brown and I think Lucy from Charlie Brown where they go and kick and they pull the ball out from under them. I saw that on the quad today, and I just thought it's like, just keep that football down, see if he can make a field goal, and if so, give him some pads for this week. But my first player, I picked an out player first. Jonah Williams, our left tackle. He's definitely left tackle 1 on the draft boards. Easily a top 5 pick in my opinion. Now, a lot of scouts have said that he's playing and he's going to be a guard in the NFL. So depending on where he gets drafted, he might turn into a guard. I don't understand it. I think he's been playing like one of the best left tackles, and I think he could be a cornerstone for an offensive line at tackle. But, I mean, it's all about where you get drafted. And it depends on where teams draft because there's a lot of time before we figure out what the order is going to be. But likely teams are Arizona because, they drafted their cornerstone quarterback last year, and they definitely need protection because he has 0 time. And another team is the New York Jets or the Giants, honestly. Either team could use a guy. They're both probably going to be picking in that range. Another New York team, Buffalo, they're probably going to have a top 10 pick. and everything except probably like linebacker and quarterback, they need help with. So if they want to pick up a defensive guy, they can. But if they want to help out the offensive line, they might wait or try to do in free agency. But pretty much any top 10 team who either have strong defenses or value fixing that O-line over whatever defensive lineman's available, he could go to any of them. And he might, like I say, he might play guard, he might play tackle. No matter where he goes, he's definitely going to be a day one starter for whatever NFL team he has on his roster, or whatever team decides to draft him.
Yeah, so my next guy coming in is a 4-star defensive lineman, Antonio Alfano. He's a top 100 player who I think, he might could be getting a 5th star soon. I think he definitely deserves it. In the last game he played, he had 6 sacks to go along with 4 quarterback hurries. Alabama, I think they have a good shot at having 2, maybe even possibly all 3 defensive linemen departing, so he could be in the mix next year for some playing time. He's already got a good size at 6'4", 284. So, he's one of those guys that maybe possibly could, step in and contribute some. I mean, I don't think he'd be starting, but, defensive lineman, there's always that rotation going on there, so maybe he could get into it.
My next guy coming in, his name is Rashad Cheney. And before last week, we had 6 defensive linemen committed to Bama. So Rashad Cheney, he was committed to Georgia, but for one reason or another, they pulled Cheney's scholarship. Maybe they thought they could get some better quality players. So that's when he decided to commit to Bama. And now he just decommitted from Alabama. It's been a rough road, most likely because of the same reason Georgia, honestly. It's kind of sad, but best of luck with him going forward. But they're kind of good for Bama fans in a way, because maybe the guys on the staff think that they're better players, maybe wanting to commit.
Yeah, hopefully so. My next player coming in, of course, to his little brother, Talia Tungavaloa. Of course, this past week, it was his senior night. He had this huge comeback win against Hewitt Trustful. And he's pretty much the entire Thompson team, especially in the offense. If they win games, it's because he wins it for them. And the way he showed his dual threat ability, he had plenty of passing and rushing yards. And the way he did that against a high-level team like Hewitt Trustful, I thought was very impressive. My biggest concern with Leah is that someone's going to steal him from us. I don't think it's going to happen. Of course, he just got offered a scholarship from Georgia. People have talked about LSU trying to steal him. Of course, Auburn and LSU's head coaches were at his senior night. Of course, there was plenty of players to watch in that game, so it wasn't necessarily for him. But there's concern that he might decommit because he doesn't want to be into a shadow. But I'm not concerned yet. Until he officially decommits, I think he's going to stay with the Tide. Of course, fingers crossed.
My last guy is he's listed as 4-star outside linebacker, top 50 player in the nation, Henry. I'm not 100% sure on this pronunciation. I'm going to try, but it's like Henry To'o. Alabama actually likes him at the inside linebacker position. That's where he plays a lot at his college out in California. Kind of a Dylan Moses, Rashawn Evans type. He's not committed anywhere right now, but if I had to guess, I think Alabama's got the inside track on him. I think there's a good shot they could pick up his commitment.
So my last guy coming in is the great-grandson of Bear Bryant. His name is Paul Tyson. He plays quarterback for the Hewitt Trustful Huskies, and people like to compare the 2 quarterbacks coming in for Bama, Talia and Paul. I don't think Paul has as much raw talent as Talia, but he's got the framework. He's like 6'5", like 220, something around there in the 200s, low 200s. So he's a big guy. He can make the throws. We watched him against Thompson. He made some good deep throws, some good intermediate throws. Probably not as consistent or as accurate as Talia, but with hard work, it should be interesting to see in a few years Talia and Paul battle out for the starting quarterback job.
My last guy, Quentin Williams. He might not leave this year because he's a redshirt sophomore, so he definitely has more time. But if he does, he could easily be a top 10 pick, and that's even with how stacked this D-line is. Let's see. He's working his way into being the second best interior D lineman in the draft. Of course, Ed Oliver is probably number 1 still. There are some guys who think Quentin Williams, when it's all said and done, might jump Ed Oliver and become the best interior D lineman in this class, which just says how hard he's been working. Of course, he's not on a lot of draft boards yet, just because not a lot of people knew about him coming in. But every time you watch this guy's film, he is just proving why he needs to get drafted. So some draft boards have him in the teen range still, but he could easily go top 10. I doubt top 5, but you never know. The Raiders, the Cardinals, the Browns, those are all options. I saw him get drafted in mock drafts. And it all just depends on who's picking in the range. He's not going to go before Bosa. He's probably not going to go before Oliver. But he might become the first Bama lineman or even the first Bama player drafted in this draft. And that just says something because we have so much talent in. And just a random question for y'all. If I set the over-under for first-rounders this year from Alabama to be drafted at 4.5, are y'all taking the over or the under?
I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I'd probably have to take the under too, honestly.
Okay, so 3.5. Y'all taking over or under?
I'll go under.
I'd go under.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I think there's 3 locks. I think Jonah Williams and Deontay Thompson. Who am I forgetting? Crap.
I think Quinn Williams.
Quinn Williams.
But
I think those are locks.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I just think. I mean, yeah, if everything goes as expected, but like right now, like there's just way too much time between now and the NFL draft. Like, God forbid injuries or anything like that happen. But like right now, I definitely have to take the under on that. Like, because right now, those 3 guys in my mind are the only guys that are solidify themselves a first round pick. Everybody else is kind of like on the, maybe, possibly, depends.
Yeah, my thing is there's just so many available. Of course, there's those 3. Raekwon Davis is still on the board. Bugs is on the board.
Yeah.
Mac Wilson, Anthony Jennings.
I think most of Alabama's talent production this year is from guys that aren't draft eligible, though.
Yeah,
for
especially
being
on
honest.
offense.
Yeah. I mean, like, even on the defensive side of the ball, it's like, Dylan Moses, Surtain. I mean,
It's just those
Diggs would have been
upperclassmen
draft eligible, but
with that injury.
McKinney.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many, and they're all really high ranked. Of course, for some reason, Alabama people always find a way to fall, but
I mean, draft is hard to predict too because it depends on what teams are drafting, what they need, what they actually draft based on what they need, and there's just a lot of components that go into it, so it's hard to predict.
One thing I feel confident in saying is that Washington picks up at least one Alabama player, probably someone with their first round pick. I could see them trying to get. I mean, they don't need D-line help, but they could freaking get Quinn Williams. You never know with what they're going to do. But I have a very strong idea that they're going to pick an Alabama player the way they've been drafting as of late. Okay, so now let's look ahead towards LSU. What do y'all think is going to determine this game? Because this is definitely the toughest game we've had on schedule.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the points. I mean, that sounds kind of basic, but it's going to depend. LSU obviously has great defense, and we have a great offense. We have a pretty solid defense too, but their defense is definitely going to be the best defense we've played so far, especially with that secondary. It's going to help that Devin White's going to be out for the first half, but how many points can Tua score in this game, which I think is going to be a pretty solid amount. Probably not as many as we have had in the past this season, but a pretty solid amount. And the big thing is going to be how many points can Joe Burrow put up on Bama's defense, because Tua's going to get his, and it's going to be a lot of weight on Joe Burrow's shoulders.
I think a lot of it's going to end up on how our offense handles the pressure. This is definitely going to be the toughest environment we've played in since the championship game, and I don't know if their offense is going to be able to keep up. If we kind of like get off on a tough note, they might get a couple early touchdowns and get some momentum, so we definitely need to avoid that. But the biggest thing is when Tua gets in that environment, if he makes a mistake, is he going to be able to bounce back? Which, I mean, he proved in championship game he has the ability to, but it's been a while since he's been tested. And all the new guys who didn't play in that championship game, if they get down or if they don't score on the first drive, are they going to be able to bounce back? And I think we're going to be able to handle the pressure, especially if we start out strong early and we shut the crowd up early. But if it becomes a third, fourth quarter game and that stadium gets involved, how are we going to be able to handle it? I think that's going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, no disrespect to LSU, but, I mean, across the board, Alabama's a lot more talented than they are. got a lot better players at most positions. If this game wasn't at night in Baton Rouge, I think a lot of people would be calling for an Alabama blowout. But it's at night, it's at Baton Rouge. I think it's one of those games where it's not I'm not concerned about what's going to be going on necessarily like on the field like that be affecting us, but when something doesn't go according to plan, how can the team like bounce back and stuff like that. I think it's important that they get off to a good start and not give the crowd a whole lot to be excited about. Like you said, this will be by far our toughest game of the season. But with that being said, I don't think this is the LSU team that Alabama normally goes down there and plays. I don't think they're as good offensively. They don't have that star player like Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Leonard Fournette, Jeremy Hill. And defensively, their front seven, it's really lacking somebody like an Arden Key. They're going to be missing Devin White the first half. Secondary's good, but one thing that thing about LSU secondary is those guys are big. I want to see how they do against guys like Ruggs and Waddle out there who are really fast. How well they can cover them. Even the linebackers on Irv Smith and linebackers and safety on Irv Smith and the linebackers on guys like Josh Jacobs and Najee Harris out there in space. But I think in the end, the matchup beside the game is going to be what I just said, the LSU's defensive backs against Alabama's wide receivers. If Alabama's wide receivers can create separation and give Tua a chance to let them make a play, I think Alabama's going to win pretty handily. LSU's defensive front just really, it's not as dominant, especially in the pass rush as been in the past. They don't get to the quarterback a whole lot. I think they're around the middle of the pack in the SEC for that, but I think it has a chance to be a good game, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, only thing we have left is our picks. Now, we decided to tally up how we've been doing so far because honestly, we just kind of make picks blind, just see what happens. But you both are tied for first at 27-14, and I'm coming in real close in last place at 26-15. So these next few weeks are definitely going to be big. Of course, I pick which games we pick every week, and I should just start picking games where I know y'all are going to make the wrong pick, honestly, because I've been slacking a little bit, especially these past few weeks. But the first one we have is Northwestern Notre Dame. Hopefully you can take it.
Yeah, I actually have Northwestern in this one. They've been on a little bit of a hot streak recently, and Notre Dame hasn't been playing as well as they did in the beginning of the season. I think Clayton Thorson's going to be huge in this game, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can put up enough points on the Notre Dame defense to get the win, and I think he will.
Yeah, I'm going Northwestern too, but Clayton Thorson has to play much better than he played last week. 3 interceptions. He's not going to be able to do that against Notre Dame's defense. It's a really tough game to pick. Like, deep down inside, I think Notre Dame's might probably win, but I don't know, for some reason I think Northwestern just got a really good shot to pull this off. Northwestern, they're coming off a really good win against Wisconsin. I think out of Northwestern's last 13 or 14 Big Ten games, they've only lost 1, which this isn't a Big Ten game, but Notre Dame's definitely up there with that quality opponent. But I got Northwestern.
Okay. I don't know why I'm honestly giving Northwestern such a good chance. I do think Notre Dame is definitely the better team, but it feels like Notre Dame has to Notre Dame it somewhere. That being said, I think they're going to lose to Syracuse a little bit down the line, but I don't think they're going to lose to Northwestern. And I think this is where I get that tie back, and I think y'all are going to miss it. I think Notre Dame's going to end up winning this game. Not exactly a hot take, but it could go either way, but I'm pretty confident Notre Dame's going to come out and win this one. Up next, big game in determining who wins out in the Big 12, Texas versus West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm taking West Virginia. They looked a lot better since their loss to Iowa State. Be interesting to see how Texas bounces back from that loss to Oklahoma State. Will Greer's going to be the best player on the field, in my opinion, and I think he'll get it done.
So, Texas isn't back, but they just ran into a buzzsaw when they went up against Oklahoma State. And it was a hostile environment, and it was Oklahoma State's homecoming game. They've done really well in their homecoming games. So I think that was just one where they were destined to lose. I don't think it really shows how good Texas is. And I honestly think that Texas is going to come out and try to find a way to win this game, and they're going to pull it off. Like I said, they're not back. this would be huge in terms of kicking out the Big 12 because then Oklahoma would be the only team with a real shot. I have Texas winning.
This one was hard for me. I had to go with my gut, and Texas had that loss against Oklahoma State last week. I think that may carry over into this week, and I think that West Virginia with Will Greer and David Sills, I think they'll hook up a few times on big plays, and I think they're going to get the win.
Okay. Now, this next one, Penn State versus Michigan, this is probably where y'all are going to take the lead back because my pick, it's not logical in any shape, form, or fashion, but it seems as if teams, after that first ranking comes out, they start to look ahead as to who else is ranked and who's high up on the boards that they need to beat. And this is when the upsets really start to happen now that we're in November. And I think Penn State's going to find a way to win this game against Michigan. I'm pretty sure it's at Michigan, which is going to make it harder to do, but I'm picking Penn State.
Michigan.
Yeah, I had Michigan in this one too. They've improved a lot since week 1, and you can't beat the Wolverines in the big house. I think Trace McSorley is good, but I don't think he's good enough.
Okay, up next, Georgia, Kentucky. Of course, probably going to determine the SEC East, and Oakley, you can take it first.
I have Georgia. I think they're the better team. Kentucky almost lost to Missouri last week, and they really shouldn't have. And Jake Fromm's looked better than he's looked earlier this season. And if he could put up similar numbers, Georgia should take this one pretty easily.
I'm thinking Georgia. Not that Georgia has a high-powered offense, but Kentucky's really struggled to score the ball. And Georgia's going to get some points because of their run game. And, Fromm's not a bad quarterback by any means. But they're going to have to do it throwing the ball, I believe, because Georgia's really going to try to key in and take away Benny Snell. And I think they'll do that, so I got Georgia.
I just find it insane that as we're recording this, Georgia is 9.5-point favorite in this game, and we're a 14-point favorite against LSU. I don't know why people think this is going to be as close as it's going to be. Maybe it's because it's at Kentucky, and they have a lot riding on it. But I think they're just too one-dimensional, and Georgia taught us last year that you have to be more than just a running team to beat Georgia. If they stack the box, it's really hard to do something. You have to do something to alleviate that pressure. And Kentucky just doesn't have a quarterback on the roster that's going to be able to do that. So I have Georgia taking it, and I think they're going to cover the spread because 9.5 points, that's just disrespectful of Georgia in my opinion. And the last game, of course, game of the week, Bama versus LSU. And Bryant, you can take yours.
Yeah, I'm taking Alabama. I don't think it's going to be one of those games where it's going to come down to the final second like it has pretty much every game in Nick Saban's tenure at Alabama. But like I said earlier, I think Alabama's really just more talented at every position. I don't agree with the notion that Tua hasn't been tested. I don't know if he's going to face a bigger test than what he did last year in the national championship game. I will predict Tua. I think he is going to take a snap in the fourth quarter. But the key to this game is not only, I mentioned Alabama's wide receivers winning the battle against LSU's DBs, but the line's got to protect Tua. And Tua really doesn't need to be running the ball a whole lot. He's got to stay healthy. We don't want to see what it might look like with Mac Jones in there because there's obviously some buzz going around that Jalen may not be ready by Saturday after having the ankle surgery. But with all that being said, I think Bama wins this one handily, 42-17.
That would probably be ideal, is if we could win it with that wide of a margin. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that, and I think it's going to be tough for us. But in the end, Tua's probably going to win it, and he's probably going to win it third, fourth quarter. He's going to take fourth quarter snaps, and I think we're going to win it 35-21. So we'd be right there at the spread, at a 14-point spread.
Yeah, like we said earlier, the test is going to be how many points can Burrow and the Tigers put up on Bama's defense and how many points will Tua put up on that LSU secondary. Coach O made the comment that he's going to make his defense make Tua throw the ball, and honestly, that's fine with me. So he's good at. So he's good at. I think he'll put enough points. I think it'll be a little closer. Tua will probably take a snap in the fourth quarter, but I think Bama wins 38-24.
So you have Bama making a field goal in Tiger Stadium at night?
I mean, we'll see. Anything can happen, right?
Yeah,
That's
for real.
when we're picking a score, I'm like, I always do that. I'm like, do I really think Alabama's gonna make a field goal? I'm like, no, I don't know if they'll make a field goal.
I'm pretty sure in one of our games I've put we're either going to make 2 field goals or we're going to miss an extra point. And then that game we made 1 field goal and missed 2 extra points. So you never know.
If I'm picking an Alabama score, always pick Alabama score to where they don't make a field goal, and always pick the other team score to where they do make a field goal, because it always seems to go down like that.
Yeah, definitely so. They always have to show. I mean, y'all might be better than us, but by golly, we have a kicker. So, anyway, that wraps up this episode of Dorm Squad Sports. Make sure y'all subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, and Podbean if you want to. Of course, we have that interview with Days on Ingram that came out this week. Make sure y'all give that a listen. And hopefully y'all enjoy the result on Saturday and have a happy game day. And roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.